Let's talk about computing the other four trig functions. So what I mean when I say the other four trig functions is everything except for sine and cosine. So in addition to sine and cosine, we have tangent. The tangent of an angle is its sine divided by its cosine. Cotangent is cosine over sine. Secant is 1 over cosine, and cosecant is 1 over sine. I will say a great way to remember the difference between these two, secant and cosecant, which one goes with sine and cosine, is you'll see here, they're in S and C pairs. So secant and cosine go together, cosecant and sine go together. So the S's are not matched up, the C's are not matched up. Okay, so I also have at the very tippity top of the screen here, the cheat sheet of sine and cosine values kind of divided up by their reference angles. So we have the four positions that all match pi over 4 and their cosine and sine values. The four positions that match up with pi over 6. So these are the four angles that are closest, or the four positions rather, that are closest to the x-axis with their cosine and sine values. And then the four that go with pi over 3, which are the four that are furthest away from the x-axis and their cosine and sine values. So when we say that they go with each other, of course, what we mean is in the first quadrant, we have the XY coordinates that are noted in the picture. And then at each of the other three positions, it's these same two numbers in the same order. It's just minus signs start to show up. So anything in the second quadrant has a negative X, positive Y. In the third quadrant, X and Y are both negative. And then in the fourth quadrant, the Y is negative, but the X is positive. Okay, so let's come back and do some practice down here. All right, so our first mission here will be secant of pi. Secant, S and C pairs, right? So this is 1 over cosine. So to compute this, I'm going to do 1 over the cosine of pi. So I need to locate where pi is on the unit circle, decide what its cosine is, and then I have an extra computation at the end, 1 divided by that number. So if 2 pi is a full circle, 1 pi lands us over here at what we would call 180 if we were in degrees. The coordinates of that point, because we're exactly 1 unit to the left of the origin, that point is -1, 0, and we need the cosine. So I'm going to grab the x value of that point, -1. So the cosine of pi is -1. So my secant is 1 divided by -1, which is also -1. All right, that's 1 down. I've got a handful to go. I've got at least 1 practice with each of these 4. The next one here, we have cosecant pi over 2. S and C pairs, so this is the C, it goes with the S, so this is 1 over sine of that angle. So I need to locate pi over 2 and decide what its sine is. Pi over 2 is halfway to pi, so this is the very top of the unit circle. If we're exactly 1 unit up from the origin, that'll be the point 0, 1, and I want its sine value, so that's the y, so I'm going to take that 1. So this answer will be +1. All right, let's keep going. The next one is tangent of 3 pi over 4. Tangent is sine over cosine. So I need the sine of this angle and the cosine of this angle. 3 pi over 4, I'm going to count out my pi's over 4. Those are your halfway angles through each quadrant. 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. So we're exactly halfway through the second quadrant. So I'm going to associate this back to pi over 4 as its reference angle, right? We're right here. So my cosine and sine are these numbers. And because I'm in the second quadrant, the x value will be negative. So the cosine is negative. So I have -√2 over 2, +√2 over 2. So this point, we said, is -√2 over 2, +√2 over 2. So that's my cosine and sine respectively. So I'll put them in their spots here, √2 over 2 on top, -√2 over 2 on the bottom. And then to compute, divided by a fraction is times its reciprocal. So I have my numerator times the reciprocal of the denominator. And in fact, root 2 cancels, 2 and 2 cancels, and this computes to -1. Okay, the next one will be the messiest of the examples in this video. We have the cotangent of 5 pi over 6. Cotangent is the opposite of what we just did, so this will be cosine over sine. Okay. So we locate 5 pi over 6 first. Pi over 6s are the steps that cut the unit circle quadrants into thirds. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pi over 6. So this is the lowest angle in the second quadrant. So its reference angle is pi over 6. So I'm this angle right here at 5 pi over 6. So I'm going to grab these coordinates, root 3 over 2, 1/2. But because we're in the second quadrant, that x value is negative. So these coordinates are negative root 3 over 2, positive 1/2. All right, so that's my cosine and sine respectively. We'll put them in their spots to compute. Again, to simplify this, we do times the reciprocal of the denominator. The 2's cancel each other away, and my final answer is negative square root of. All right, the last couple of examples I have in this video are just to show us that for the other 4 trig functions, so tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant, because they involve computation with division, these 4, it's possible that for some input values, so some angles, they're undefined, whereas sine and cosine always exist for any angle. For these 4, the answer might be undefined instead of an actual number. Okay, so for example, tangent of pi over 2, tangent is sine over cosine. Pi over 2, again, is the very top of the unit circle. If you're 1 unit up from the origin, your coordinates are 0, 1, so that's your cosine and sine. So I have 1 divided by 0 in this computation. This division by 0 is what tells me, oh, the tangent of pi over 2 is actually undefined. There is no value tangent pi over 2. So as soon as we see division by 0, we stop and say undefined. So any angle whose cosine is 0 will not have a tangent value. All right. Similarly, for something like cosecant negative 5 pi, cosecant is 1 over sine. So we need to figure out what the sine of negative 5 pi is. So we start by locating negative 5 pi. Negative in the angle means we're rotating down clockwise instead of the normal counterclockwise. So this is 1 pi, 2 pi, 3, 4, 5 pi. Negative 5 pi lands me here. The coordinates of that point are negative 1, 0. The sine in that case would be the y value of 0. And again, we see division by 0. So this is undefined. So there is no value cosecant negative 5 pi.